Hi everyone. So, as always in this brief video, I'm going to go over some of the key terms from the week. For this week, I think these ideas, this notion of Toulmin argument, and what we'll see really, what we're really driving at is making explicit formal arguments, is one of the most important things we can learn in this class. So, Toulmin argument, explicit argument, claims, qualifiers, reasons, warrants, and backing. Yes. What we're going to go over here is one, at the end of this lesson, students should definitely be aware of some of the main components of a Toulmin argument, at least the idea of a claim, evidence or good reasons, and warrants. There are a few others we'll go over, but those are really the core thing we need to understand from Toulmin argument. We want to understand them so that we can identify those components in the other arguments that we might come across or even use in our own writing. And of course, the big goal here is to be able to use these components to make fully supported explicit arguments ourselves. Before we go any further, I'll say if you've ever gotten feedback from an instructor or a teacher and maybe there's just a question mark next to it, the dreaded red pin question mark, maybe the feedback is explain this more. This lesson is going to help you know what the hell instructors or teachers mean when they say, explain this more. I think this will really help us understand why our academic readers maybe want our arguments to be a little bit more explained, explicated, and thorough. So some of the basics here are claims, which we know are simply, that's just the argument you wish to prove. Sort of maybe our hunch, what we think, and we've gone through the process of selecting a good claim for our project. You know, we ask a good question, we think, maybe the answer is this. Qualifiers in Toulmin terms are any limits we place on our claim. And we know that good claims are narrow and deep, right? Why would we want to why is it inadvisable for us to make a claim that if we were to claim, let's say we make a really general claim that television is bad for people. Why is that inadvisable in academic writing? Well, because academic writing takes that claim really literally, and if we don't specify what types of television to what people and how exactly it's bad to them, we're going to be stuck writing a huge 1-volume, 2-volume, 3-volume treatise about how the history of televisions from 1950 in every country has affected every person in the world and has affected negatively their learning and their eyesight and their empathy, right? So we don't want to put ourselves in that situation. It's much easier for us to say the television, sitcoms from 1991 to 1995 seem to have affected the learning of 18 to 25-year-olds in the United States, right? That way we really can focus, we really can write, once we see how difficult, how much work it takes to support a claim rigorously and explicitly, we can see why we want to have narrow claims, because that's going to be a lot of work to support that narrow claim in its own right. I sat in on a colleague's class once when I was in grad school, and he explained it. He used a metaphor that I can't get out of my head, so I guess it's a good metaphor. He's kind of a dork, a nerd, and I mean that in the best way, because as we all know, nerd culture is mainstream culture now and nerds are cool. But anyway, he explained it as if he was explaining it in medieval broadsword tactic terms. Yeah, stay with me. And he said, if you were storming a castle in medieval Europe with your chainmail and your armor and your swords, one of the worst things you could do would be to storm the castle and then go stand in the middle of the room, right? Because if you stand in the middle of the room, you have 360 degrees around you from that you have to protect yourself from. What was the preferred broadsword tactic in medieval Europe? Well, you get into you storm a castle and you back yourself up into a corner. And that way you have about, 45 degrees in which to defend attackers. It's the exact same way, it's the exact same thing in academic writing. If you make a claim about all television at all times and how it affected all people and how all of the different aspects of how it affected them negatively, you're going to have to be defending, fighting off attackers, fighting off critics left and right. And the narrower we make our claims, the less space we sort of stake out for ourselves, and the more we can actually defend our qualified claim. Okay, that was an aside. Of course, we know that we need claims to make an argument. Hopefully we have a limited qualified claims. Qualifiers are simply saying things like, instead of people, we want to avoid these general terms, so we would say something like young American men from 18 to 25 years old. That's a qualifier. Of course, we know we need reasons and we need evidence, which are simply support for our claim. And this term may be new to you, this term warrant, but this, I think, is our operative concept for the entire lesson. Warrants are the underlying assumptions that support your claim. This will be more helpful for us to see in examples. And of course, if we really want to make a thorough, explicit, rigorous argument, we're going to need evidence for that warrant. Okay, so let's dive into each of these in more detail. We know that a claim is a debatable and controversial statement or assertion that we hope to prove. I won't belabor this because this really fits with our previous work on choosing a thesis that is controversial. Our reading uses the word juicy. A good claim has stakes, right? Shakespeare wrote many great plays and sonnets. Who cares? Boring. Easy to support? Yes. Does it have any stakes? Absolutely not, right? It doesn't really stick its neck out. It's not trying to prove something new. Our book gives us these examples, right? These are sort of juicy, debatable, controversial, compelling, challenging thesis statements. We should do this. This thing should happen in this specific way. One that I'll try to claim that, right? And these claims, they begin as hunches, which is absolutely fine. But one claim that I'll try to sort of think about supporting throughout this lesson is that I have this hunch that The Simpsons is the most influential comedy of the past 25 years, right? That's a claim that it has some stakes. Perhaps I need to qualify it. Perhaps I need to say The Simpsons is the most is the most often cited animated cartoon, American cartoon in the past 25 years, right? Maybe I need to put more qualifiers on this claim to make it really good, specific. Of course, we also need evidence or good reasons. And I think we all know this. We're not walking around writing papers in which we just make claims and leave them at that. We all, I think, have come out of high school at least knowing that claims need evidence. You can begin developing a claim by drawing up a list of reasons to support it or finding evidence that backs up the point. This comes from our reading, of course. What's interesting, and I want to point this out briefly, is that often we think of evidence as necessarily hard evidence, statistics, or something like that. But I like this chapter that I assigned because it points out that good reasons they aren't necessarily hard statistics. They can be. That's helpful, especially in certain contexts, in certain discourse communities. But personal experience, we can use that as good reasons. Anecdotes, stories, sometimes, maybe not always it's not bulletproof in academic writing, but we can use personal experience and anecdotes as good reasons to support a claim. Of course, the more well-worn territory in supporting a claim are things like facts that are incontrovertible, or that come from facts that come from authoritative sources, which also leads us to this next thing here: authorities, right? If someone with a lot of ethos has said something about a topic in which they have a lot of ethos, that can be a good reason to support our claim. Our reading suggests that when we're trying out supporting our claim, that we should try putting claims and reasons together early in the writing, and it creates what rhetoricians call an infame. That's not super important that you remember that, but right, again, I think we all know this. We all have written a paper in which we make a claim and we pair it with some evidence or some good reasons, right? If I want to explore my hypothetical claim here, I might say, The Simpsons is the most influential comedy of the past 25 years, claim, because I see references to it everywhere, right? That's personal experience. That's a reason. I'm going to try it out. I throw it together. That makes a little bit of an argument in brief. Or, well, because my friends who are interested in comedy all seem to love The Simpsons. Or if I want to go more factual, I might say, because a research paper at Stanford that analyzed allusions in the most popular comedies of the past 2 decades found that The Simpsons were referenced more than any other source, right? Maybe that has a little bit more weight in academic writing. I found a peer-reviewed sort of fact. Maybe I want to go to authority or testimony as a reason to support this claim. Well, The Simpsons is the most influential comedy of the past 25 years because Conan O'Brien said so. So, up to this point, I think we haven't learned anything groundbreaking. I think we all have, at this point in our career, have probably intuited that we can't just say, The Simpsons is the most influential comedy of the past 25 years, period, in a paragraph. Let me go on to my next claim. We all sort of know that we need to include evidence or good reasons to support our claim. Great, but stick around for the next video where we will break new ground and discuss this idea of warrants and how that really helps make our arguments explicit, formal, and thus compelling for academic and intellectual readers. Warrants are the reason. Warrants are the difference between your teacher saying, "Tell me more about this," and your teacher saying, "Good argument."